You're muted, bro.
Ah, well, again, once again, good evening, everyone.
You started
Welcome to
early,
another
man.
edition of the Gray Area. I'm Mr. Bennett, joined by my partner, as always, Grooming and Reviews 101, aka the Ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Panagiotis. What's going on, Maya Delphos?
What is
Yasso.
going on, my brother? How are you tonight?
I am doing well. I am doing well. Good to be here on this Sunday evening. Finally got some good late spring like weather. Definitely got the windows open here and just looking to finally if I could put some of my winter coats away. It's like every time I want to put them away, I gotta need one, especially in the mornings. But I think we're gonna have some a warm weather trend going on in the this coming week. So hopefully it's here to stay. But I'm doing good, sir. How was you? How was your week? How was your weekend?
A little busy, but good, actually. Making some moves right now. Can't share
All right.
just yet on air, but it's going to happen very soon.
All right.
Moving a lot, making moves right now.
Sounds
Um,
good.
Worked a little bit this week. Worked a lot this week, actually. But today was a nice day. I had the car windows open the whole way. It felt like 80s. I'm actually thinking about putting the AC in already. It's going to supposed to be in
Yeah.
the 80s tomorrow. This thing.
Yeah. So again, hopefully we can get some warmer trend. But again, for everyone who's joining us tonight, again, thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. Looking forward to a good conversation. As you can see, scrolling at the bottom of our screens, you'll see our cash apps. So again, if you be so kind to support us, we appreciate any support that you give us. But more importantly than that, we also ask you to support the BMU network. So again, we're always looking to give you quality content here. There's shows throughout the week, and so we want to make sure this platform grows. So again, drop a cash app or become a member of the BMU network, and help this channel really get its footing in this space. I think and again, I might be just biased because I am a member of the network, but Peter, I think, BMU, if you look at a lot of the channels that are out there, in the content that they're giving, I think in terms of the depth of conversation, the quality of people that we have, I think this is certainly worth supporting. And I don't see too many guys doing what we do in this
I
network
actually
space.
agree with the whole BMU network. It's a unique take. It's a different take. We're not doing the everyday. Okay, let's do this because this guy has made it big. No, we're doing it. We're rebels. We do it our way, and a better way, I think, and it works
Absolutely.
great, I think, and it's going to
Absolutely.
continue working because we have a good team and we have a good
Yes.
captain, a big captain, but a good captain.
Absolutely.
So just don't let him make him do any cannonballs because another clip's coming this way if he does one, and tsunami after that too.
Sounds good. Sounds
Sorry,
good.
brother, I gotta get you, man. You know that.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, again, certainly, again, looking forward to a conversation tonight. Again, Peter, I think this is going to be a great combo. And again, salute to you. I mean,
Thank
could
you.
you come up with the program for this? I may throw in certainly a nugget or a segment or suggestion here or there, but you
Oh,
really took
time
some
out there.
time to come out
I'm
with
gonna
something.
yell at you now. It might be my idea of doing the show. If I bring up content, but without you backing me up, I can't do it by myself. I can
I
talk about
appreciate
Greece
that.
all I want, but it's gonna be a very boring conversation, and these guys are gonna be like, "Man, that's one white dude. Can I talk shit?" But with you,
Right.
it makes it more engagement. So, and I think today's topic is actually a very good topic because, Greek Orthodox is next week. Easter's
Hmm.
for Greek Orthodox next week,
Right.
and talking about Christ and everything and the Greek gods. I think this is very perfect timing. What do you think?
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's definitely very interesting topic, and there's a lot of history even now. Just the impact, regardless of what your faith is or beliefs
Mhm.
today, you certainly have the influence is still very present even in 2024, and so just that legacy again worth exploring. Even though we may certainly practice different faiths today, but certainly the idea of exploring that again, like I said, the influence over time. I think that's going to be an enriching conversation.
So I do want to mention one thing before we get too deep into the conversation. I want to get this out right now.
Hmm.
There are some people that do still believe in the gods. Uh,
Really?
yes, there's a lot of people that even people in this country actually that believe in Zeus, that believes in Thor, that believes in the Roman gods,
Mm,
Apollo, and so on.
interesting.
Um, There are a lot of people who believe that. They do go to Greece, some of them, and do a. I don't want to say call it service because it's not. Service is more for Catholics,
Right.
uh, myself and you. Um, their whatever the beliefs call it. I'm not sure the terminology. I don't want to offend anybody. So those who do believe in the gods, they go to Athens, for example, who believes in Greek mythology, and they go pray on Acropolis in Athens and to Athena and those gods. I'm like,
Hmm.
when I saw that, I was like, really? We're still doing this? I thought we were past that like 2 million years ago.
Right, right.
But yes, some people really still believe that does exist. And
So are there, I guess, are there like not orthodox, I mean, are there like churches, are there institutions, are there, if I
yeah,
went to
they do.
Greece right now, are there churches to
Not
Zeus
in
or,
Greece, but outside Greece. There, I know I was talking to a buddy of mine, I know about 2 years ago, was it? I think, and
Mhm.
they finally rebuilt the first modern Viking god temple. And
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know where it was. I was taken back. I looked at him, I'm like, you sure? And he's in all into Viking stuff. I think he's Irish, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
And he wears a thorn hammer, and everyone thinks it's a upside down curfish. He goes, no,
Hmm.
it's a Viking hammer. When I look up closer, yeah, it's a Viking hammer from
Yeah,
Thor, because that's what
yeah,
they used to wear. Thor is one of their major gods they believed in there. I'm like,
right,
wow.
right, right. I hear you. And so just to get into, I guess the mysticism of that. So, and again, I'm not a historian in terms of the origins of a lot of the stories or the gods. So I may lean on you more heavily on this, particularly with the Greek gods and whatnot. So, so definitely I'll be leaning on you as far as an education, as far as what you know about, the origins of it. But it seems like one thing that seems to be common, certainly with ancient religions, there was definitely very much a polytheistic type of landscape when it came to, if you look at Native American religions, if you look at African religions, if you look at, again, we talk about the Norse gods or the Greek gods, definitely multiple peoples empowered, whether or not they've been the creators or whatnot. But it certainly, when it came down to contrasting to say monotheism seems to be relatively new in the landscape when it comes to gods or the worship of gods. I don't know. Does Greek mythology, was there ever a concept of one being or one creator? Like, so, because the question's always going to ask, especially when when you're dealing with, like, atheists, agnostics, or whatever. If Apollos and Zeus and all these gods existed, who created them? That's always a question. So, in terms of Greek mythology, is there like an ultimate creator? Does it go to a one figure, or has it always been, how did these beings sort of come
Yeah, it is a
together?
story
And then
actually behind
yeah.
it. So best memory serves me. Please, nobody quote me to the T on this.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, I am getting old, and my brain is not the best that has
Yeah.
been. So the Greek gods were created from the Titans. So the story goes, Kronos used to, give birth. Era used to give birth, and he used to swallow his kids because the Titan was a
Okay,
humongous
so hang
creature.
on. So back it up. So if you could just kind of set the stage for us a
Mhm.
little bit. So you talk about Hera, you talk about the Titans. So the Titans were
This is before the Greek gods.
okay.
Before the
Okay.
Greek gods, there were Titans. So at one point in the Greek mythology, it was Titans versus Greek gods. Okay.
Okay.
So before the Greek gods were even a thing, it was the
Hmm.
Titans. You saw Hera was one of the Greek gods who her husband, excuse me, was Kronos. If I may be butchering
Hmm.
the right names because there's so many different Greek names. So I
Right.
apologize out there.
Sure.
So he used to swallow because the prophecy said one of his sons is going to kill him and take his throne, and that became Zeus. So she was able to trick him. She took a rock, wrapped him and hid Zeus in a cave.
Hmm.
He swallowed it, thinking he swallowed his son again, Zeus. He never did.
Hmm.
He trained. When he got older, he went and freed his brothers and sisters, sliced his stomach open, all of them came out. Now
Mm.
they all
Wow.
went after the Titans. They had this big war. I mean, explosion, flood, and you name it, like doomsday stuff. So he, then after they defeated, Zeus took the mantle of a king of the gods
Right.
in Mount Olympus. And then, history is history.
Hmm.
Then they did other stuff like Zeus was a man whore. Everybody knows he had a lot of bastard kids and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
on.
yeah.
So I don't want to get too deep. I know we're gonna get into it. I don't want to get too far into it
Sure.
just yet.
Sure, sure.
So does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So again, the question can always kind of be kind of circular in terms of where did the Titans come from, or like I think one of the things I think everybody asks at one form or another is like like how did all this begin? Just because of human beings, we're inquisitive that way, and we definitely want to be. That's something that we're always pursuing, not only where we came from, but also what is the purpose behind everything that's been created. So we can certainly take a look at the Titans, or we can certainly take a look at the Greek gods or whatnot, but we're always looking for meaning. And I know even when I was a kid, I think one obviously we're both big Star Trek fans, and I know one of the major episodes from Star Trek dealt with this idea of the Greek gods. So you had this one god, Apollos, and he captured the Enterprise with his hand, and then he had the crew goes down and try to convince him to let them go and whatnot, and so it was kind of a bittersweet ending because the idea that I think what Captain Kirk told him was essentially, we've outgrown you, essentially. And so it was definitely very bittersweet in terms of the did it have to go to that, but it was almost the idea that just as you had the Greek gods sort of outgrew the Titans, then you sort of had like human beings sort of outgrowing the Greek gods to an extent, and
Okay,
so it was.
Before we get ahead of there,
Yeah.
So this is the order because I was bugging me. This is why I looked it up.
Sure.
So the order goes: the Greek gods, then was the Titans, then before the Titans was the Onaros, and those were pre. If that makes sense, I'm gonna put that name in the chat.
Okay.
Pronounce it. And I put something in the back chat for you to see because I was trying to put it in the whole chat. I just couldn't fit it. That's why I put it in the back chat and chat.
Gotcha.
So that's the order they were pretty much created during the history of it. Right. It goes back and forth with that. Like Gaia, like I said, she was the one who broke the trend, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so much history back there. It's not even funny.
Right, right.
That's
so now for one understand, like each sort of Greek god served a different function. Like there was the god of this or the goddess of that.
Correct,
so you have the goddess like Eros, I think was like one of the goddesses. I think was the name Eros, wasn't that one of the Greek goddesses? Or was that? Do I have that? Do I have that correct? But there was like one that was like a goddess of love or passion or whatever. You had a god of war.
Yes. I gotta think of the Greek version. It translates into English, so my brain.
Now, I would rather you just do the Greek, because I mean I'm sure that's something being enlightening as well. So.
Heracles, for example, I'll use the Heracles for example. Is Hercules, also known as Hercules in the Roman one. It depends because he was actually in both.
Mm-hmm.
He fascinates me really much because he was technically a bastard. Bastard wasn't what we think it is now. Like, oh, you call me a bastard. No, bastard was a term they used that you did not know your father or your mother or your parents were not together. It was like one of those teenager pregnancy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing with Zeus, people don't understand. He had the power of lightning. That's number one. That's his main power. But he could transform into an eagle, fly down, pretend to be somebody else, transform himself into somebody else. Let's say I'm going to use you, for example. He transformed into Paul. You're at work. He gets in bed with your wife, does his business, releases his seeds, and fly away. Now,
that was also something I recall remembering, that a lot of these gods, however they comprise themselves, they would always have relations with human women. To extent. Now I don't know to me if the women had similar relations with human males. I don't know if that was ever a thing, but definitely I think with Zeus, from what I understand, he had several relations with just different human women. So again, the product, I guess, that you're creating, is that more so like a hybrid being, sort of half man, half god sort of thing? Are they still fully God, Perseus, for example. Now a lot of stuff. Honestly, and to be honest, I learned some of the stuff watching like Clash of the Titans, both the old one going back to like 1981, 1982, watching that movie, and then the newer one that came out in 2006. So honestly, a lot of my intro into the stuff came from watching a lot of those classic movies when it came to these Greek gods and such. But but Perseus was considered kind of like a sort of like a half man, half god sort of being. He wasn't super powerful like Zeus and the other gods, but he still had
Right.
a certain level of abilities that
Same thing with
the
Hercules.
average
He
human didn't
wasn't
have.
that powerful. He wasn't immoral.
Mm,
He was strong as shit. That's what made him so good because he could go after all these different creatures. Like, man, I keep forgetting the name. The one that you cut a head. Help me out, Paul.
oh, Medusa.
No, the one you cut your head. It was they made a Marvel movie out of it. Hydra. Like,
Oh,
he went
okay.
after Hydra.
Cut off the head into grow in his
Yeah,
place.
so that's one example there. So he did the nine thing he had to do. So he had to go after each thing. Hydra, go after Lion because how strong he was, ridiculous. In real life, they proved he was a Hercules. Obviously, he wasn't a god,
Right.
but he was strong as shit. That's why he was able to fight a lion, snap the neck, and use his wound as armor because a lion's skin is very strong.
Right. Right.
So obviously back then they used natural stuff out, and it's fascinating. So
Mhm.
what fascinates me here is the order of this. Zeus was the top, but then you had Ares, his brother, one of his brothers. So they were, they had to kind of break it down. So he took the underworld of it.
Mhm.
So that's one. Then you had the god of water. I won't come up with his name right now because I can't remember all these names. Perseus, and that's another one. But Perseus didn't want to take leadership. He wanted to take his big brother handle it, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So you got like Athena. Athena was,
Yeah.
they called her the most beautiful god out there, but she wasn't. But she would control all Athens. Every
Right.
god had a purpose in the place.
Yeah.
So if one went down, we had to replace him. So they realized they had to start mingling with each other. So
Right.
if they want to continue the sperm count, but most of them didn't want to mingle with each other because most of them were related. Like so, so I'm not going to sleep with my cousin over there. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to go down to an Earth and hook up with an Earthling and give someone an opportunity. That's the mentality they had. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, for what I understand, I'm just looking at a quick list right now. I think there were in total, there were like 19 gods and goddesses in total.
Main gods, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so then break that down. So you have what then is the distinction between having like a main god and then what would come under them? Are those the sort of like the human hybrids, or how does
They had a
that
specific
hierarchy
name. They
work?
were demigods. The demigods were like Hercules and so on. So they were never considered as real gods because they were not immortal. They were not sitting on Mount Olympus.
Mhm.
So they would die. They would go down to underworld, and again, they would go back to like Hercules. So here's a great example. Hercules' best friend died.
Mhm.
He went to underworld and fought to get him back, and you couldn't get him back.
Right.
And you had to, obviously, man, what's his name now? Damn, my brain just freezing right now tonight. Wow, I'm having a bad brain night.
It's a lot. I'm gonna
Yeah, it's a lot to remember.
keep
Guys,
keep
tell me the
talking.
whole break.
I'm gonna put something in the chat that I think hopefully will help folks kind of get an idea here or a breakdown. And like I said, certainly I'll be trusting on you
Harry
to
was the king of the underworld. So to get to me, you had to be dead, and you had to pay your toll. That's why they always put the 2 coins on your eyes. You had to pay your toll to get into the afterlife. So Hercules literally went, okay, boom, 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 went in there with fist blowing, grabbed his friend, and got him out there. And he did that a couple times, actually. He's one of the few guys who did it. Like, I know people give a shit about the show of Hercules. That I'm not talking about the cartoon. I'm talking about the actual series.
Yeah, who was that? I forget the actor who played him for all those years. I forget off the top of my head. But yeah, I remember a lot of the show when it was on. And
The name is Kevin Sobel.
Sorbo. Yeah,
Yeah. His show, it was a lot of things he did on the show in 6 seasons. They spread in 6 seasons, but a lot of it was actually very accurate. The way he lived, his wife was murdered, his kid was murdered. He had to do the nine, the nine, trying to think of the name. Nine what was it? Labors. There we go. That came back to me. The 9 labors. He had to do the 9 labors to, for his father to just accept him as his son. He had to do them all. And the 9 labors were taming, killing a lion, the 9-headed Hydra, and we talked about that already.
Yep.
Central hiding, the bear he had to kill, the single day was the other one, the birds. It is a bunch of things. I'm gonna put this all in chat because it's a lot, and they all have their own way to talk about it. So it one is every Pacific one, but the one to me was most fascinating one he did. It was the Hydra. How he, because at first he couldn't defeat that. It was like coming at him like, okay, I chop what? Oh shit, I got 2 heads now. Oh, I gotta chop the other 2. Oh shit, I just caused a bigger one. I got 4 now. Shit.
Yeah.
So his labors were a thing, and the best version, I personally believe. Again, you can argue in the chat if you want, and that's fine. Hercules, who played The Rock, who played Hercules, that was the perfect version. The reason is, Hercules was kind of jacked, to be honest with you, a little bit, but he had to, but in real life he had a little belly gut, but nothing crazy. But so having something like that, and back then, Greeks wasn't white as hell like me. They had a little bit tannish color to them, like you were in the sun kind of thing. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So because Rock, he's half and half. He's half Hoson and half black, so he has a tan color right there in the middle, and that's how most Greeks were back in the day.
Right.
People think they were, I would say everybody calls him goes to Sparta because of how white the hell I am, but technically they were not white. It's me.
I got you. Yeah. And but typically how the here's a good question, because typically how these gods are presented in terms of the because they all have the statues and whatnot. Do we know like who fashioned them, and how did those figures sort of get accepted? Because it's usually they kind of look like what you would typically call like a lot of the guys look like Greek men. They have the beards, they have the the musculatures and whatnot. So how did that come about in terms of what's your opinion on how these folks are represented, or are they even good representations based on maybe there's writings or scriptures or something in terms of how these people looked that they drew from, or were they basically fashioned in the image of the artisans in terms of their stature and likeness?
Who designed the statues? The first question I want to tackle. It is somebody who designed them. I'm not denying that. I don't know the name of my head, because when I was supposed to learn that chapter in history in Greece, I was already shipped to the stateside, so I missed that part. So I want to touch base history, the word history in Greece. So in here, when we learn history in school, you learn about Greek history, you learn about Roman history, you learn about all different kind of history all over the world, even ours. In Greece, you learn one history, Greek. That's all they care about.
Oh, really? So you don't take, I guess, world history isn't necessarily something that's, so you only focus on Greek history, which would include a lot of the Greek mythology.
Not included. All thing you learn is Greek history about the gods and the kings, World War I, World War II. That's it. And whatever they have wrote in history books over the years about since Greece was the first established, the first person to go, this is Greece, and it went down straight to modern times. That's all you're going. And here's a key thing in this I found very fascinating as Greek, and I think you're gonna like this part. Greeks in Greece learn ancient Greek how to read and write.
So there's an ancient Greece script that's different from the from what we know to be Greek today.
Yes. So I'll use Linnaeus, for example. When they said to him, his wife said to him, carry your shield or be carried on the shield. And that's a real thing. the scripter was wrote, I couldn't even read it. I seen the scripter, not in person on a screen. I'm talking about. I'm like, this makes no sense. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna bring it down to my mom because she
Mhm.
learned Greek. I go, Mom, what the hell this says? She looked at it and goes, that's ancient Greek, Pete. But I know what she said. Then she turned around and called me Malaka on top of that. And she goes, that's ancient Greek Malaka. That's again, I told you that Malaka means a lot of things in our language.
Yeah.
And she goes to me, that's ancient Greek. I'm like, honestly, I'm saying, she goes, she was 73 at the time. She goes, I'm 73. You think I remember that shit?
Yeah.
I go, good point. So, and I knew you learned that. Usually you learn that towards your senior year in high school. That is one of the things you have to learn to pass.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, wow. Like, name me another country that that you have to learn their ancient language to get past high school. Name one that you know of.
I'm sorry. Run it by me again. Name what now?
Name one other country that you have to learn their ancient language. Like ancient Greek is an ancient language. Name another country that does that besides Greece. Off your head. Well,
not in the United States. I mean, certainly there used to be in certain disciplines, Latin was something that a lot of people learned as part of curriculum and whatnot. That was decades ago, if not because a lot of the text, especially when you talk about like the Bible, for example, the Latin Vulgate, for example. So learning Latin, which was certainly a root of a lot of the Romantic languages that came out of that and ultimately, German and French and all those languages came from that. So in order to read a lot of the ancient documentation, I think learning Latin was something that used to be like a requirement of curriculum in colleges. But you're talking about like going back to like the 1800s and things of that nature. I don't know in the 20th century if Latin ever became like a mandatory topic. But outside of Latin, I don't know of too many languages where people had to have that in the curriculum. Like when I was in school, you learned you had your option. You could take Spanish, French, Italian. Now that's gotten chopped down. Period. I think the fact that English is essentially proliferated all over the world, very few languages are being offered. I know when my daughters were in school, they only had 2 languages outside of English. One was Spanish. Actually, 3 of them. One was Spanish. The other one was Chinese. Because obviously, so we're 1.5 billion people, so and also a major superpower. So I guess that was it. And then also, if you want to learn Turkish, because I think that the educators, they came from like a Turkish background, and so they had the kids learning that. But when I was in school, there were tons of languages. You could take Italian, you could take German, you could take Latin, you can take all types of languages, French. But if you look now at most, K through 12 curriculums now, a lot of those language majors have been shut down. And because, again, the dominance of English and people are just not being, able to take those courses, you really have to get to college before you can really start, having like a diversity of languages that you could take on. So it's definitely something. Hey, salute to Take Heed. Thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate you stopping by to see us tonight. Good to see good to see you.
So I want to touch base what you were saying really fast. As I mentioned, in Greece, the only other language you learn in Greece is English, and that's it. Here, when I was in high school, the only 2 languages that I had option from was Spanish and French. Don't ask me why French.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why to me it was a little weird about that. But I was able to get out of it. The reason I was getting out of it is a little funny story. My mom, typical Greek woman, she learned I'm going to learn Spanish and French. She goes, not in this fucking house. And she starts throwing her arms. And I'm like, you are Greek. I go, no shit, Mom. No, I'm Greek.
She doesn't call you. She doesn't call you Greek. She puts the syllable on it. She calls you a Greek.
Pretty much. You're doing it better than I can. I gotta give you credit that one.
So she uses that 2 syllable on you.
Yeah. So long
To
story short,
give an update, sorry guys.
Go for it.
Mention what country that teach their ancient language. There are multiple African countries, including Nigeria, that force people to speak their ancient native language. Now, if you're from the southeastern, it's more likely is Yoruba. If you're more the southwestern, it's more likely Igbo. Same thing with the north, it's more likely Hausa.
Mhm.
Many other African countries make sure that their students learn their ancient language of their particular region.
Right.
I'm not sure about Asia or like the Japanese or the Chinese. You had two type of Chinese, you got a Mandarin and then another, I forgot what one were called, but I believe there are other Asian countries. I'm not too sure. You might have to look that one up just to
Mhm.
give you the heads up.
So the only question I got for you, Black David, I know this is gonna sound very stupid and a little bit of racist, and I apologize ahead of time. As you learn your language in there, do you have to learn like the symbols or smoke signals and all that stuff too?
Now, when you're learning Yoruba back in my high school, you had to learn how to read it because they had its own alphabet.
So the
Just like
alphabet, so it's not your alphabet is not Latin in origin. It's a totally different
no,
script.
it's a totally different. Just like Mandarin, Chinese,
Yeah, yeah.
different. The Yoruba alphabet is way more than 26 letters. I recall going to that scenario. It was not that simple, but I had to learn it. And we had to
Hmm.
practice it over the period of time.
Hmm.
That applied to every African, especially people from Ethiopia.
Right.
They have to learn their ancient language. So that's been known because every school has to teach it. It's like
Major.
yeah, it's not only a major, you have to pass it. You don't
The
pass
same
it, you
thing in
don't
grades. You
graduate.
have to pass it. You had no choice. You don't pass it, you fail. Simple. And you want to be the one kid that fell in high school.
So when you ask that question, it's kind of like a very tough question to ask because someone had to go back to their origin of their country and find out if that language they have is actually the ancient language or the language before that. People from
Hmm.
Latin America, from South America, that's where the big question come to play.
Right.
Interesting.
Now again very similar to Greece. Is there like since you come from a Yoruba tribe, is there like an ancient Yoruban, or there's like a more modernized over time? It's just like English. You
No,
had Old English, Middle English, and modern English languages. Is there also an evolution of the Yoruba language
now
and scripting over time that you're aware of?
what I do know is Yoruba have multiple dialects, at least about 50. Reason why it nothing had to do with modern because the Yoruba tribe have different sub-tribe within itself.
Hmm.
And based on the dialect, one word can almost have two to several meaning, depending on each sub-tribe definition of that particular word.
Right.
Same thing with Igbo, same thing with Hausa. It was just that we were part of the British colony, so English more like the universal language that everybody have to use, compared to Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Ghana, and a few other African countries. They were part of the French colony. French was forced upon them, but they still have their own native language.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's the difference. So I can
Gotcha.
tell about my own country because Yoruba is considered a requirement to pass. Any other
Ah,
language
okay.
beside that, unless I go to the southwestern region, I will have to learn Igbo. Or if I'm going to the north region, I have to learn Hausa.
Right.
Because that's the three major languages. But it's about over 500 dialects. That's what I mentioned. When I mentioned dialect, it's picked on the sub-language of the main language.
Right. Gotcha. Interesting. Interesting. Now, is there in native Nigeria, was there a time? I guess let me just ask this. I know the topic is gods tonight, but it was there a time when Nigeria was like one people, and then they just kind of dispersed into the different tribes and nations at one point? Were they unified at some point, and did they worship under a the same God at some point? This is obviously before Christianity came to Africa or any other religious influences, but just from your knowledge and understanding, what do you know of ancient religious practice? I know probably Ekene might be the person to talk about some of this since he's more
I
into
think
the.
Ekene will have a deeper understanding because when I spoke with Ekene, I was being brought to my attention. Nigeria was not existing. There was actually five major kingdoms that
Yeah.
run Africa, and Africa
Hmm.
wasn't the original name. It's just that the British and the European Legion divided the country.
Yeah.
Nigeria, as itself, due to present time information they found, was a business hub where they were
Yeah.
selling not only slaves but also selling mineral and resources.
Right.
So among the Yoruba, we have Shango. Shango was a Yoruba god, but the thing that he was a human being. He was called a god due to the supernatural ability he was portraying. And if I'm correct, Shango is a mirror image of Thor.
Okay.
If you understand what I mean by that, Shango control lightning.
Right.
Same thing with Zeus, for example.
Right.
Bingo.
Now you just might have just opened up a can of worms, because there has been the discussion, and you know how black people are. Everything goes back to Africa. Whether talk about Christianity, whether it talks about anything else, everyone says everything is a sort of a carbon copy of something else. So they say if anything having to do with God, it started in Africa first, and somebody then copied that, and it went to this place or another one. So who knows? Is it possible that the Norse gods maybe took the concept from the deity that you're talking about and sent it to Norway? I don't know, but that's always, like I said, we're always in pursuit of the origins of something and influence of something.
That is a very good question, because I saw a few TikToker who are historians, they were having that debate that it could be the case that they copied some of the African god origin and made it as their own. I'm not too sure. I'm not
Right.
sure who had it first. I would say Ekene, who is a true traditionalist,
Yeah.
he may have a better understanding of these history better than I do, because I
Right.
think you have to reach out to him and have a part
Right.
two about the God conversation,
Right.
because there's a lot of African God that people will only know about and talk about it. They got it from their family, because it's
That is
considered to
true.
be.
Most families do pass on from generation to generation. Like I learned
There you
most of
go.
this stuff through my family, believe it or not, and school too, about family more than anything.
Because it considered to be an idol worship. That's the term when they use idol worship, because among the Christian and the Muslim, they consider anyone worshiping any traditional god to
That's
be an
right.
idol.
Mhm.
So that is a whole different ballgame. I only know of a few Nigerian god, the Shango, the Orisha. I forgot what the other one is, but if I remember, there was more than 7 of them, and they're all based on past rulers who had supernatural power. They were doing certain things and during that time that considered to be out of the norm.
Mhm.
That's the issue. So I may not know it in detail. I remember I did that part in history in high school, and it was confusing to me, because you had to list each god based on what region of Africa they reside from,
Right.
and who do they control under their thumb, like me, what tribe, what under their lineage.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Right. Right. Right.
So that's a
Now,
very deep question.
right. Now, Black David, I put a slide in the back. I don't know if you can
I'll,
see it. I've been trying
I
to
can see
present
it.
it and see if you can throw it up. So I just wanted to kind of give some scale to some of the conversation that we're talking about tonight. So I decided to just quickly, as we were talking, put a quick slideshow together of some of the, I guess, more known gods. So since obviously we started out talking about the Olympians and we talked about the major figures. So this is some of the family tree grooming that you were talking about, and certainly you're free to make corrections to it. Again, I just kind of snagged this just to kind of get a sense of it. So we see the people at the top, like you said, Guy. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Gaia, is that the right?
That is actually right. Only thing I would correct on that, her husband was Kronos. That's the only difference.
Kronos. Okay,
Yes.
not Uranus.
Yes, that's correct. I think
Right.
Uranus was the Roman version of it.
Okay, got it. So you have those two, and then I guess they had some, and then through that union you got Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter. Is that, or Demeter? Is that, how do you pronounce that one?
Which one?
Demeter, Demeter or Demeter? Demeter.
That says Dimitri, actually.
Dimitri.
So
Okay.
yeah, I know we had no guy named Dimitri. So I will look which one you're looking at right now. Give me
Right.
1 second to find one.
Gotcha. And then you had again Zeus and Hera. I guess they got together, and again you get Ares, Hephaestus. Again, you might have to help me with the names here, but again, it's just kind of showing you some of the origin of some of these gods, and again, some of these people, whether or not you believe in the gods or not. Again, the names are such. I mean, we name cars after these people. The Apollo. I mean, if you're into NASA, the Apollo space missions, a lot of those were named after a lot of these Greek gods and figures. And obviously with, in more modern entertainment, you have the Marvel characters, Thor and the, the Greek gods, Wonder Woman comes from, a lot of these sources, the Amazons and whatnot. So a lot of the comics that we read oftentimes comes from these characters, which is an interesting thing in and of itself. Because when you think about it, a lot of our superheroes that we talk about have some sort of origin in some sort of religious background of some kind. So whether it be, again, with the Asgardians in the Marvel universe, the Olympians in like the Wonder Woman universe, even when it comes to Superman, that draws very much from monotheistic religion, the idea of the Father sending the Son down to earth to be benefit of mankind. That's a very Judeo-Christian type of sentiment of belief. So in a lot of ways, you could say that the comics that we follow today oftentimes draw from these religious themes, and a lot of the themes certainly in those comics dealing with the battle for good and evil and the figures that you're going against. So in a lot of ways, for a lot of people, I think comics or the superhero in a lot of ways has kept the mythology, if you will, going in a lot of these instances for these.
That's true.
So we can that they still remain relevant because of their popularity over the decades since, in fact, we just had a show not too long ago on your Hangout show where we were talking about, again, the comic books and the periods of time. And
yeah, I actually want to touch base on this really fast, Paul, before we go too far. Mm-hmm. Okay, so comic books were my expertise, and Greek gods another expertise, man. Okay, so let's do Marvel MCU for 1 minute here. Mm-hmm. MCU does have a lot of Greek gods. I believe it was the Last Avengers or Last Thor. I can't remember. Last Thor, that's what it was. Last Thor shows Thor meeting Zeus, and Zeus was terrified of Zeus. I mean, Thor was terrified of Zeus. Yes, they made him a very comedic role.
Right.
In real life, he was very fearful. He was worse than Thoris. It was actually the other way around, but I'm not gonna get into that little details. Now let's use DC for example. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is the whole Amazon tribe is based off a Greek story. It's not real.
Right.
It's based off it. Zeus is in it. Hercules is in it. I cannot tell you how many characters, is in it. Let's go to Spartans, for example, 300s. 300s, we know Spartan 300s is a real story. Frank Miller used that story, twisted it around a little bit, and made a comic book off a basic true story. Some he took from facts, A to A, didn't change it. Some things go, let's tweak here because this is a comic book. I can do whatever I want with a comic book.
Exactly, yeah.
Even with 300, the rising of the empire, that is completely made up, but he used the baseline. Spartans.
Right.
So as much as you want to say, Greek mythology is kind of dying out, I'm going to disagree with everybody who was saying that because it's a big part of everything still.
Yeah, no, like I said, I agree. It's part of the, like I said, a lot of it is so much part of the culture, of Greek, certainly history and civilization. And again, just a lot of the references that we talk about, like I said, a lot of the moon missions, like in fact, the next, from what I understand, I think the current mission for NASA now going to, again, I think going back to the moon or Mars or whatever, I think it's called the Artemis project, right? I mean, I think that's so, like the next, Yeah, so that's like the next project. So again, it's interesting how we draw upon for NASA. They've always drawn upon these names in naming a lot of their projects going forward. Again, to kind of keep that connection to that, and also one aspect I want to get to is for a lot of when you talk about astronomy and astrology, for
Good
that
point.
matter,
Very good point there.
a lot of horoscopes. In fact, I remember
Another
at
good point.
the end of Clash of the Titans, the original movie in 1981, they actually at the very end of the movie they give you the scene where they're showing you the gods in the stars, like how a lot of the early astronomy, they would have, like when you had like Big Dipper, Little Dipper, or whatever, or they would talk about the different gods, how they were the different constellations of the stars. They would name after a lot of these Greek gods, almost giving them again like a permanence to them, that we would always reference them in our science and in our classrooms. So again, the legacy there is with us, whether or not we believe that they were actual beings or we still worship them or not. Again, the influence of Greek culture, particularly their gods, is still with us in a lot of different ways. We just don't think about, but definitely the astronomy and astrology is they put their imprint there. So what do you want to add to that?
Nothing. I really actually agree. I represent what you're saying. Everything. A lot of stuff. Greek, even other cultures have added their little sense in all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's how we connect, and that's where we find the gray area today. Definitely, is
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, Greek might start the most of this mythology. I would say that. Maybe a little biased, but
Right.
it all connects the dots. If you look at all these different cultures that had gods in it, Zeus equals to oh man, what was the Viking god Odin.
What, Odin? Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, let me just kind of go through here. So I put a few slides together. So again, if you look at Norse mythology, and again, this is a pretty complex as well. So you have Ymir, and then you have the giants, and then Odin. I guess he disseminates from the giants there. So this is sort of like the table of the Norse gods. There's a lot more of them. I think in total, I think there's like 66 of them. But then you see again Odin and I think Frigg coming together. They birth Sif, Thor, and so again you have these family lineages here that again from the Marvel perspective they've taken and run with it to create a mythology that still persists through the comics. But here you see another sort of family dynamic with all the different guys, and again every guy tends to serve like a different function. And so when you talk about like monotheism, when that became sort of like the dominant religion of the world, at least in some sectors, it was definitely a radical concept when you just had this belief that there's one all-knowing, all-powerful God who's sort of in control of everything. But
the All-Father, they called it.
What's that?
The All-Father.
The All-Father. You're right. So you have that there. Then there's another one I just wanted to show. And in fact, if David, if you want to come back up, I just want to take a look at Africa, because a lot of times in these conversations.
Before we get too far ahead, I do want to mention one thing before I lose my train of thought.
Go for it.
In all the Greek gods, there was one. Right, for you might follow. You see that this one. It was one that they had established and acknowledged. He was 100% black. So I'm gonna put the whole description right in the chat so everybody can read it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it was very fascinating, actually. Like, and the only one that was debatable about was, what's her name? Athena. They were saying some people said she was black, some people said she's white. That's a debate they never really downput. But this one I'm putting in the chats.
Right.
They already acknowledged she was worshipped as a black woman or black man. Depends which way you want to look at it. Because
interesting. What was the name of this person?
I put it in the chats already. I put it in the back chat too for you. There you go.
Okay, I'm just checking it out now.
Yeah.
Oh, so Erebus?
Yes.
Erebus. Okay.
That's how I pronounce it, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the principal primordial gods of the Greek creation. He is the son of Chaos, who is the mother of Erebus' wife, Nyx, the personification of night.
Yeah.
So this person has
So
always been
the reason I say he or she, because depends how you look at it too. Because Athena, for a man, oh, that's a Greek name, but some Greek women say no, that's a man's name. Back then, now we have
I've always thought of
established it
Athena as
different.
being a female.
Yeah,
at
I always
least
thought it was a
always
female, and when I heard that, I was like, and that's an argument they've been opening lately. I think it's more with the whole LGBTQ kind of thing, opening up worms
Right.
that they're putting their hands in.
Again,
Stay out of my
always
goddamn
thought of
culture.
I've always thought of Athena, Aphrodite. You know, like I said, there were certain ones that you always associated
I
with
personally
being
think
female.
it's the LGBTQ putting their hands in where they doesn't belong, and if I need to chop some hands off, I will.
Gosh, moving on with the show. Again, I want to move to the again. There's some African deities here. So again, Black David, if you want to comment on some of these. So there's even in Yoruba, there's an Ishu, trickster and messenger god. There's different ones that are here. Ogun, again, also Yoruba Olorun as well. So again, if you want to comment on some of these that you may know of that you learned about, I mean, but I just wanted to share this because I don't think
See,
that's many
before you
people
say
know.
anything,
about
I'm gonna
I'll
ask you a question really fast. As a native African, you see one common line between Greek and African right now? Because I see it right now.
I see it a lot because, for example, Allah, that's Igbo, Nigerian, mother goddess, ruler of the underworld, goddess of fertility. That is where
that's like Aphrodite, isn't it? Isn't Aphrodite?
And this is where
Bingo.
where my answer is going. That's what I was looking for. I was
Okay.
going to say, I apologize, David. I'm cutting you off. I apologize. We might have different names. Maybe the pictures are different, but what their powers were or what we believe they were, they're very similar from Greek, Roman, African, or whatever. Have you realized that?
Yeah.
I know.
That's why I was asking the question earlier. It's like, is there an origin? Who came first, or were these inspired, or if they all emanated around the same time, then is there something else going on in terms of how this was revealed? Did they all receive, whoever the founders were, or whatever, did they all kind of receive a vision of a common entity that just manifested itself in different ways in the different countries or the nations or whatever? I mean, that is
the best way I can re-answer that question, and this is maybe again a little biased again. You got to figure out which civilization was this founded first. I can't pronounce that goddamn word. Which one was founded first? So the arguments are going between two ones right now. Again, man, which historian you want to believe in? Some say Egypt was the oldest we have dated back. Some say.
Speaking of that, I do have a slide for that as well.
No,
so again, so again, you have these, again, Egyptian gods, and there's a couple that are missing. I know some people today. I think Ma'at, is also one of the ancient Egyptian gods that even I know people today, sort of they've left, the modern Christianity, whatever, and went back to more Afrocentric worship practices. So that's one that people have decided to adopt as well. But you have these entities as well. But again, as you were saying, there's different. Each god seemed to serve a different purpose. Again, so Osiris, again, the goddess of fertility, for example. So it's interesting in these major world religions, there's always one god that's sort of responsible for that aspect of life, of fertility. Then you're going to have like a god of war, or whatever it is, or a goddess of representing something. So again, the similarities that seem to be taking place over all of these different areas of the world, is a fascinating. Is a fascinating discovery, at least with the way I'm looking at it, because I never quite put all these together and started looking at it in this sort of cross comparison type of way. But go ahead, Dave. I know you were trying to get in.
Go back to the slide for the African god. I want to pronounce the name properly. Ama, which is Dogon from Mali, supreme god. I'm not too familiar with that. Kang, which is the Bushman, southwestern Africa, called creator god. That's not known in Nigeria. Eshu, Yoruba, trickster, messenger god. That is kind of known. Katonda, that is Buganda, East Africa, creator. You see to say creator god, father of God, king of God or universe. How is Katonda and Congo not almost the same. That
Mm-hmm.
where the contradiction come to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kibuka, that's the same area, Buganda, East Africa, war god. Leza, that is Batu, Central and South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
creator and sky god. That
Mm-hmm.
is based on a particular tribe that migrated back and forth between Bantu, Central and South Africa.
Oh, okay.
Mu- Mujaji is Levido, South Africa, rain god.
Mm-hmm.
Nyame is Ashanti, Akan, and Ghana, creator god associated with the sun and the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Ashanti was another name for another god. I don't know why. I think if I might be wrong, but I heard say Ashanti was another name for an African god.
Mm-hmm.
Ogun, Yoruba, West Africa, god of war and iron. Ogun was not actually a god; it was a man. But
Mm.
because he shows supernatural power, they call him a god. Now here where the
Okay.
contradiction come to play. Olorun, the word Olorun in Yoruba means God. So I'm not sure if that's actually the sky god, supreme deity. It
Mm-hmm.
could be Shango that we're referring to. I'm not too sure.
Right.
Because I remember before, like I said, we had to study all the ancient Yoruba gods,
Mm-hmm.
and there are a good number of them. So you only got
Right.
a certain list. But when you notice, certain we consider the creator god, we
Right.
had three creator god there. We had Kang, we got Katonda, and you have Leza.
Mm.
That
Now, are these
back to
all
that.
male entities or they're female
More likely
enti-?
male entity. They're probably more likely male entity. But if you were to do a history research on African god, if you related to a person who exhibit supernatural power during the ancient times, then we have a lot of idol worshiping the supernatural people using what they call black magic voodoo, what we want
Mm-hmm.
to call it.
Right.
Like David,
In
the
Nigeria, we
only
call
question I have for you right now is one guy I don't see on this list is I might be pronouncing the wrong name. I do apologize. Sango, Sango. He's supposed to be the most powerful African god.
that's the Yoruba god.
Okay,
And it's, on,
Sango is also.
it's not on the list. That's why I'm saying that that list needs to be updated properly.
okay,
Right.
So they
okay. So
actually,
I'm not completely wrong then.
no, you're not wrong. 'Cause I remember,
For
like I
once.
said before, there was a show back then, 2 or 3 years ago, called The Grapevine. They talk about all the African gods and their worship that people have to do. It's a traditional worship, but it's really, really supernatural, not something to mess around with. And that's why they were trying to tell a lot of the African Americans to be careful what you're trying to indulge into because it's not something so simple. Oh, I could do that, no big deal. No, it is passed down to multiple generations. Some people walk away from it on the danger that come along with it.
Right. Well, I think a lot of that comes from again, for certainly for some, especially African Americans, I think a lot of them um, uh, sometimes become disenchanted. I think with a lot of the Judeo-Christian
Hmm.
expression, particularly when it comes to the dark history, slavery and the slave Bibles and how the religion was basically manipulated
And
to
I and I and I
to
get
white
it
people. Yeah. So,
because
yeah,
there's a book
exactly.
going out on.
I can kind of understand that people, but again, even when I was in college, I know there was, especially from a Pan African type of perspective, there was this desire to reconnect, so to speak, with African roots, and so a lot of that also included the worship of African gods and reestablishing different ancient practices and whatnot as a way of like I said, just that reconnect. So I think a lot of the culture certainly I think drove a lot of that desire to want to have a different expression. But you can go ahead.
I would say that's totally correct. You're absolutely correct. 'Cause it have been going on for multiple decades. A lot of people from the U.S., from the U.K., were coming to Africa to learn their origin or their root about the ancient African god. There's a lot of people in Africa who are considered the real professor of this type of culture because they understand the history and the information that been passed down to multiple generations. The problem is, as you delve into it deeply, it's not something so stupidly engaging because when he mentioned Shango, I remember Shango. Shango and who else? I forgot. There were two particular guys who were battling back and forth. They say when they were fighting, they created the River Niger. That was the folklore behind it.
Mhm.
And that it's only if I could I would can able to around right now because he can explain it better than I do because he's the traditionalist. I have walked away from that because it was kind of scary. Then
Yeah.
I'll be honest, it was kind of scary for me because when you list all the African gods in there, you start to question yourself like, to no one of the now one of the Africa is so different because the Yoruba tribe have moved between three different countries: Nigeria, Niger, and Benin.
Right.
You find the Yoruba tribe in those three countries.
Mhm.
So Black David, I
And
want to
with
jump in really fast. 1 second. They have two documentaries that call. One is called African Gods.
hmm
Don't know if anybody seen it. Came out 2022. And there's another one on Netflix called African God Nigerian. So I was Netflix one I'm gonna watch. I already added to my stuff, but definitely if you have time to check those out, I'm not sure how accurate they are.
are they on Netflix?
One is yes, the other one I'm not sure. I'm sure trying to find it.
Let me know where it is. I can look it up and I take
Yeah.
my time to watch it. I can document
Right.
it because,
The
like
the
I
one
said,
says African Queen Nigerian is on Netflix. The other one, African Gods, I'm still trying to track it down. Once I track it down, I'll let you know.
Right.
because we do
Like
we
David,
let
can you
that.
actually put the slides up? I think I did an update. If you want to comment on this one, maybe this one might be a little bit more clearer. So again, so this is a list
Okay, that
again. These are from
correct.
Yorubin gods. Is this?
Olodumare, Supreme Creator. That's what it is. Olorun, ruler of the heaven. That's correct.
Hmm.
Olofi, that the conduct between Orun, heaven, and Aye, earth.
Hmm.
Nana Buluku, that's the angel supreme. Hmm. I never heard of Nana Buluku, but
Hmm.
Olodumare is known
Right.
among the Yoruba villagers.
Right.
Olorun, ruler of heaven. And funny how Olorun is also used in the Bible, referring to God.
Interesting. Right.
Olofi is the conduit between Orun, heaven, and Aye, earth. What I was mentioning is actually a Yoruba language. Orun is a Yoruba language. Aye is a Yoruba language. So I
So could
understand
you
what
look at Olofi as almost a maybe not a Christ-like figure, but again, I guess that connection between God and man is the person looked at in that regard, sort of the bridge.
in a way, yes, because the way they
Mhm.
say a conduit between heaven and earth, it may be like a bridge or a messenger or in between or
Right.
negotiator, some kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there are a lot of African movies now popping up on Netflix describing some of the type of God based on a story. How one in particularly he died, but he ended up coming back like a god, and he was kind of like don't want to let go of his own people. There's a lot of folklore in Africa that I have missed or haven't come across. So I think this is a very interesting topic to indulge into to get better
Right.
clarity because
Right. Now
looking at
I
it here,
actually had yeah, I actually had one more. Again,
okay,
same. So you had these
Oku,
different. Now again, I don't know if these people would be considered
let's see,
God or again God
okay,
humans or how some of these
okay,
figures. You know, if you have any commentary on these folks here.
I'll make it clear. Oku, Osumare, Ibeju, Ososi, Ori, Olorun, Oba, and the last one is Enrile.
Irene?
Like I said before, all these names were given to people who were human beings showing supernatural ability.
So
They
Gotcha.
like
were
I make
called
God
as
almost.
God because remember I said before the Christian pilgrim we came to Africa, everybody had their own entity within their own tribe,
Right.
which shows significant kind of power. Either they control the earth, they control the thunder, they control the weather, whatever. That how would I put it? These people delve into the deep level of the supernatural. This allowed them
Right.
to exhibit certain ability.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right. Well, it's
And I
interesting
can,
that yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your point.
it's not to say there was no God, but those people were considered as God during their time,
Right.
during the ancient time. So kind of
Right.
like as more we get close to modernization, the less people hear about it. Unless you are
Right.
part of that particular tribe who pass down that story from generation to generation, you will not hear about it that much.
Right. But it's interesting that, first of all, looking that obviously we don't know how any of these people, quite frankly, looked. Again, I think a lot of is interesting just with any kind of imagery, even in Christianity, whatever. We all have these images of what God looks like, what Jesus looks like, what and everyone again
you correct. You
It's
correct.
funny you
since
said
the
that.
fashion their gods in oftentimes their own images. Again, the exception being, like I said, with when Pete showed about Erebus being black, that might be showing an exception to that.
I'll give you another example, Paul, right now.
Yeah.
When they did the whole God of War thing with Vikings, they
Mm.
actually brought Thor how it's supposed to. Thor was actually a fat guy, believe it or not. Fat, hairy son of a bitch. He
Yeah.
had a beard cut, everything. The way
Yeah.
they showed them in the game was how he's supposed to look in real life. Not
Right.
like we have in the movies who plays
Or
Thor.
even in the comics. I mean, he's tall. He's like 6'5". He's blonde,
Blonde hair,
blue-eyed, or whatever.
like
I mean,
every
it's
girl wants to, jump on him and ride him like a pony. Nothing like
Right.
that. He was a
Okay.
fat, hairy son of a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, but how the gods are represented, I think, has a lot more to do with how we want our gods to represent. Like, I think even the Bible talks about that. How a lot of the idols, the Bible talks about there's really no other gods, but the gods that we create. So again, we want our gods to have certain features. They want us to look in certain ways. Again, a lot of the Greek statues that I've seen, a lot of the Greek gods, they're all muscular. They're all like, got ripped 6-pack abs
That is so correct.
and muscles and things of that nature. The women, they're naturally thin and have those feminine lines, dainty lines and things of that nature. So again, it's a lot of it comes with how we fashion them. But I want to go back to the slide, Black David's still on, that just in looking at these people, the way they're represented. Again, all the guys are jacked, and if they're super powered, but I immediately think of a potential comic. Now, again, Marvel created Black Panther, and we got the Wakandans and whatnot, but it almost seems like if these are beings who weren't necessarily gods, but supernatural beings, someone can very easily take these people and literally make a line of comics out of them if they wanted to. They could say they could be mutants in the X-Men vernacular, or they can be a certain race of beings that are protectors of Africa. But you could see these people be in fashion. As I said earlier, a lot of our superheroes are based on a lot of these mythical beings, whether they be gods or hybrids between God and man, or whatever it is. A lot of how these traditions get passed on is through, in the modern parlance, is through these superheroes. So I could just imagine someone creative enough to come out with a new comic book series featuring these people. This could be like a league of like a Justice League. This could be like the league of protectors, and run with it. And I would just be curious to see, just as we've seen the success of how Greek and Norse gods, and like I said with the Superman mythology, how would that factor? Would people be drawn to that if someone decided to take these figures and make them into something that is more tangible for modern
I'm glad you mentioned
audiences?
that. That a few Nigerian and African have been working on that particular project for the past 5 to 6 years,
Mhm.
and they have been trying to get investors to jump onto it. As of lately, for some apparent reason, there have been an increase of investors want to partake in these African folklore movie or animes as well, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on. I recall that Disney did their own version of a Nigerian animated movie, and I'm not. I haven't watched it yet. I'm not ready to judge because anything concerning Disney, I don't trust.
Mhm.
But anything outside Disney, there are people working on multiple projects as we speak. When it will come to air, I don't know. That slide you showed me just now, if computer it's either computer generated or somebody was trying to empathize what they think the African god is. I found something on Google. I want to share the screen so I can read it out for you guys. The actual information concerning these gods. Um, I looked up African god and goddesses. So when I looked down, somebody would have put in the information. Olorun is the ruler of heaven in the Yoruba religion,
Mhm.
supreme god or supreme being in Yoruba pantheon. Olorun is also called Olodumare. Remember that I said that
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
In Yoruba culture, Olorun is credited with creating the universe and all living things. You mentioned Oshun. Oshun is an Orisha, a spirit, a deity, or a goddess that reflect on one of the manifestations of the Yoruba supreme being. In the Ifa oral tradition, keyword Ifa, that's one of the sub-tribes in the Yoruba tribe and
Mm,
Yoruba-based religion of West Africa. She is one of the most popular and venerated Orisha. Oshun is an important river deity among the Yoruba people.
mhm.
It is, hold on, um, Peter says Shango.
Yeah, yeah.
Shango is an Orisha in Yoruba religion.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, Shango is the royal ancestor of the Yoruba as he was the third Alafin of the Oyo kingdom. Remember that he's a person.
Right.
That's what we refer to prior to his promoted deification. Shango had numerous manifestations, including Aira, Ogodo, Afoja, Lube, and Obimi. He is known for his powerful double axe.
Right.
That's
So yeah,
that's one
double
of them.
X, just like
Uroku,
Stormbreaker, I guess. I don't,
let me see the information again.
right.
Something like that. Something like
I
that.
have a yeah. I
Something
have a
that not
question for
be
you
without.
guys. Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. So
Axe.
one thing that I'm seeing with, regardless of the place. So we looked at Egyptian gods and goddesses. We've seen Nigerian gods and goddesses. We've
hmm
seen Greek gods and goddesses, and we've seen Norse gods and goddesses. But when it comes to monotheism, we basically see one god, and that god is typically referred to as masculine, as we refer to him as he or him for the most part.
hmm
Um, but I find it interesting that in these spaces that we've been talking about, there's been a lot of discussion in terms of like the role of a woman, um, in terms of being, a helpmate to the man or whatever, or that women aren't seen necessarily as leaders or powerful beings or what have you, at least in the monotheistic representations, at least from what I've been hearing in a lot of these spaces. Now, again, there's debate over that. Some folks don't think that women should be in the pulpit necessarily, but a lot of times in these ancient gods, you had female deities that were certainly respected, worshipped, feared, had abilities. So it seems like in a lot of these ancient religions, it seems like there might have been a bit more parity between the
And
sexes in terms of how they're represented, and maybe that may be manifested in terms of how men and women see each other. I've heard a lot of conversation about African culture where the man and woman isn't like, the man isn't superior to the woman. They're like, they're dual in their roles, and a lot of times that comes from how they view their gods. So I'm just wondering, based on what you've been sharing and based on what we've been sharing tonight, what do you think the fact that these folks had these female goddesses, what impact do you think that may have had on how men and women saw each other in the culture and societies back then?
So with the Greek side of it, I could say Athena was known as a warrior.
Hmm.
She was one of the
Even
most
more, yeah.
powerful warriors.
Right.
But you also had the other ones that was one of the female gods were known as the sex god. Like you always,
Yeah.
if you couldn't, have kids, you always pray to the sex god,
That's a hermaphrodite.
Hamidani. Hamidani.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you pray to her, like, or if you were looking to get, have great sex, you pray to her. So sex was look completely different back then. You gotta keep that in mind also.
Hmm.
So I want to say females would look differently, but they did in a way. Like I won't say they were looked down upon. I think they would look more like, can they keep up with us, kind of thing. And that's where Athena came in, and the other ones came in. Oh, the chicks can actually fight.
Hmm.
She can actually kick some ass. Oh, she can kill some people in the process. Holy
Yeah.
crap, she's actually that powerful.
Right.
Named the whole city after her. Nobody used
Right.
to go near Athens for a reason. People were scared of her.
Right. But I'm talking specifically amongst the people, how they saw themselves. So again, if a woman can see herself in a goddess, what would that mean for how, again, the society treated women or
I
how
was
men viewed women
That is a hard
because there
question
were
to answer.
goddess. I mean, it was look, these female deities can come and wipe all the guys out if they wanted to. I mean, that kind of does that do something? Because everybody's looking for a representation of God in their own image to be
and
empowered
and that
So,
in a
with
lot of ways by it. So David,
so
so from the
from
African perspective, want to take that
from
on?
an African perspective, a lot of these African gods it showcase their position and their role within the community. Because when I mentioned the Oshu, which is a female goddess, she
Hmm.
have a certain position as well as the men. A good one example was something like Oloku, Sango, and Oloru. They're like god or more like warrior tribe.
Yeah, yeah,
Female goddesses represent certain aspect of the home, either for fertility or for the crop or for the childbearing or for wisdom or something like that. Because if you look at African culture, every individual have a role, male and female. No
right,
one goes step out of their role. I think that's where the problem comes to play because if you look in African culture, ain't no woman cannot speak over the man. That has been made
right.
clear.
But even amongst the gods, there was never a goddess of war or a
Mm,
warrior class
No, I
like the Valkyries out of the Norse tradition, for example. Were there ever goddesses that
I
were
wouldn't be
warriors as well?
I wouldn't be sure. There were female warriors who
Hmm.
have been considered as a god because they stepped out of the norm. Like
Right.
Queen Amina was a warrior queen
Hmm.
who at the time they did a movie about her on Netflix. How her father want her to be married or to a suitor, but instead she want to be a warrior herself. A few females step out in those type of roles to protect their own people, but wasn't considered to be God. But they were called to be a God, but wasn't a God. They didn't have anything supernatural. There was
Right.
one God I looked up, which is similar to the Greek God, and I'm sure people will understand that here Olokun is the Orisha spirit in Yoruba religion. Olotu is believed to be the parent of Aje, the Orisha of the great wealth and of the bottom of the ocean. Oloku is very as the ruler of all body of water and for the authority over all water deity. Who that sound like
Hmm.
to you?
oh, I know who it is already.
Yeah, is that Poseidon or is
Poseidon,
that?
yeah, that's what I
Bingo,
was saying.
Yeah.
bingo. And I looked it up and they say that what we're referring to Oloku, the Poseidon of Yoruba God. And I was like, interesting. So when you asked that question earlier before, is some of the God in Africa similar to some of the God to the Greek? It can be so. But
Right.
who came first? I don't know. But I do
Yeah.
know African
Or like I
culture.
said, if I, again, we're all comic geeks here and whatnot. Could it have been that we were visited by an ancient race of beings that showed up in all these different places, exhibiting similar gifts and abilities that then was manifested in the gods of that era? Since that, like I said, it's almost like when they say like have you been visited by aliens? And people always look at like we all know how aliens are typically drawn up. You know what I mean? Alien, he's got the big head, he's got the big black eyes and whatnot. And it's like all these different images and representations or whatever from people who never met each other, whatever, but they still draw the same figure or something like that. Could it have been that we might have been visited by aliens at some point in time, and that is why they're so similar to one another? Or could it have been it originated somewhere and it just went all over the world, and people just, made the modifications here or there or whatever, but we're basically taking the similar concepts and
I have a different theory.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
similar to your second theory, I think it's like whatever. If you believe Greece or Egypt was the first civilization out, let's say it was Greece for argument's sake for now. All right. So who didn't say the first civilization? Then they actually start springing out slowly. One left, started doing this. One left this way. People argue. People want to move out. How many times like I meant, I know people would leave states and stuff like that. Same concept. They left the
Mhm.
country. Like I left my country, Greece. Come here.
Yeah.
Why isn't it? Could be so far fetched. It could be a similar concept.
Well, look, we all know that, humanity, this is whether it be Bible or archaeology, humanity started in Africa. That's just the birthplace. Everybody came from there, right? And
Pretty much.
everybody kind of spread out from Africa and went all over the world and, basically adapted, physiologically and biologically to the environments that they're in. I mean, that's I'm not saying anything spiritual, whatever. I'm just saying that's what the archaeologists tell us, that everything originated from there. So human migration has been essentially started from one place and it emanated throughout out the world.
And that
So
can be
who's to
very
say
true.
that people didn't take these beliefs or these concepts with them? But the
Bingo.
question is, how were they influenced to even come up with these? Did they come up with them on their own, or was that knowledge given to them at some point in time? I think that's really the conversation here. How did these beings originate, and why is it so prevalent in these different places? Where again you see these similarities amongst one another. I mean, we can speculate, but I think that's a discussion that theologians have, archaeologists have, or people who study religion as a historic topic have. And we talked about history on last week's show. That these are the things that we try to get to the bottom of in terms of how did we get here, and so those are conversations that
I
people
think
sort of kick around.
the one thing that comes close, we all can agree, they all are similar in some way or shape or way or form.
It is.
Like you got the Africans, where everybody established it's similar to Greek. I'm not saying Greek is the number one. I'm just using it as the baseline,
Sure,
straight
I
across
got
the
you.
board
Yep.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
We already know Viking gods are similar to, again, Greek and African. Then now you're adding Roman gods are similar to. If you look up the older gods across the board, all of them are similar in some way, shape, or way or form. Like I
Right.
want to use this one. I know, but I'm not sure about African guys as much, David. I do apologize. I want you to jump in when you're ready with this. Just hear me out first. So, All Father and Zeus. What is a couple of similarities? Both of them had long hair, white long hair.
Mhm.
Both had long beards. Both were kings of the gods. Both had they were the most powerful thing on their level.
Mhm.
Right.
Both of them get turned into a bird and fly down to to the humans
Mhm.
and transformed into a different shape. Do you have something similar like that in your culture, David?
I've been trying to find out for years. I have not come across that. They're more likely to live among their people. There's one in particular is very questionable. I never heard of her. She's the wife of Shango, who could, like we spoke earlier, actually is like a warrior god, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
His wife is Oya. Oya is the Orisha of wind, lightning, and violent storm. As the river deity, she's also regarded as a deity of children, able to provide children to the help devoted and those who come to her bank at the Niger River.
Mm-hmm.
If you know
So
that
I want to add this to the
everything referring to those who dwell among them, not like Zeus and everything who live on the mountain. That's never been that case. Even though I've tried looking before back in high school, I haven't come across any deity as such whereby they came from above coming down. It's like they were already on earth with them, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I did heard of the god taking certain transformations. Some end up becoming mermaids, some end up becoming the eagles, some become animals, so to speak, based on their symbols. But
Yeah.
it's something much deeper to look into, but I'm not too sure.
Oh yeah, is that a Nigerian or that's just a
Oh yeah, it's a Yoruba.
it's a Yoruba also. So again, so
It's
to
the
that
it's
question
the
of now again,
I cannot call it Nigerian because remember I said before earlier Nigerian was
I
actually
I'm
a
just
business hub.
I'm being sloppy with the language
It's
choices
all right.
here,
It's
so
no,
I
it's all right.
apologize
You
for
know,
that.
it's not your
Well,
fault
we'll
because
teach
even
you
I
eventually.
myself
Don't worry,
do it.
Paul. You're gonna learn eventually. Speak our language. You're learning
You know,
Right.
Greek,
because
African, and everything else in the middle. It's cool.
Right.
Don't worry.
But just
I'll be-
with the description. So she again, goddess of lightning and thunder. So again, this is a powerful deity. So again, when it comes to the sexes, and again, unfortunately, I haven't heard a lot. I mean, I've heard people speculate again on ancient African cultures and societies.
Mhm.
And the thing I've always heard is that men and women were generally more dual in their role and how they were perceived. In the Egyptian gods, you have the male and female god equivalents of each other, and these were supposed to be the progenitors of humanity, or what have you. So again, when you have these powerful beings who are identified as female,
So
And if we're
it's funny
saying
you
that
say this, Paul.
ancient African culture was more dual, could we say that again? The advent of um, the monotheistic religions on Africa, whether it be Islam or Christianity or what have you, possibly has introduced into the minds of the men this idea of women being, and I don't want to use the word inferior, but maybe just one step below. But prior to that, men and women were looked at as equals in all aspects, different roles, but equals nonetheless. So are we kind of merging more modernistic or monotheistic views of women, and how that may contradict with ancient views of women, that it might be a lot more different than what we're
In in African culture, men and women are considered to be equally important, but with different roles and different
mhm,
responsibilities. Just like when I read here, Oya, she considered to be the deity of wind, storm, and lightning, right? She's also a deity that of children, able to provide children to her devotee. If you think about that type of concept, that is a particular role. What her responsibility within the family. She the bearer of children and protect children and provide wisdom, right?
mhm,
While Shango and many other are considered to be warrior or leader or people who create things. They are God with specific roles, specific responsibility, and it put in a place where there's a hierarchy.
mhm.
There's a structure or hierarchy where one must follow through. Now, when you look at Oya, if you look at the comic book, she she's referring to Storm. That's
Exactly. Yeah.
the and I remember several times when I was watching the Acme, I keep hearing that thing word Oya. And I was trying to figure that coming from somewhere, African God. Now, my
Mhm.
thing is, I can't say these God are part of Nigeria because part of the Yoruba tribe. We know they mentioned
Mhm.
Yoruba tribe.
Right.
I may have to look into the five kingdoms. I might have to reach out to it again later on and see if I can get information about the five kingdoms of Africa.
Mhm.
Because they rule Africa within five. I mean, they had certain region of Africa under their kingdom, and certain tribe were a part of them. It was no different how the warring tribe of China when they were fighting to unify the whole country. That's no
Right.
different from that. So the
Right.
thing fundamental behind it. But when we come to these gods, man, you really got me into doing homework right now because this is
Yeah.
when I think about it
Now, like
more
I
and
said,
more.
this is the first time I've never seen, like I said, these different types of deities and beings sort of cross compare, like just lay everybody out,
Well, Paul, I want to
and
actually
kind of
touch base
start
really fast.
comparing. And we're seeing all these, these similarities. So I just think that's just something that's fascinating that I've never, heard this discuss out in the open, and certainly not in the BMU space. So again, the fact that we can bring this sort of content to the BMU space,
So, Paul,
real appreciate it. Yeah.
if you look in the chats and in the back chat, I put in both so you both guys can see this.
Okay.
It's and I took this off one of the historical websites. It says Roman actually has taken their gods directly from the Greek gods. That's the soul version, obviously. If you read
Mhm.
more detail into it,
Right.
I think it's kind of fascinating a little bit because it
Right.
goes back to what we were saying earlier. All these gods are intertwined in a way,
Right.
and it says it right there, black and white.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the human story, again, it has an origin, and again, it trials. People take their beliefs with them, their influences, especially when you see, the level of creativity. Then again, if you go back to Egypt, ancient Egypt, I mean, they were a technical marvel, relatively speaking. I mean, for years we've all heard like the pyramids. Like I always heard, like for the longest time, no one knew how they could create them. They were so perfectly shaped and symmetrical, like the cutting tools, and how would you move these huge stone boulders to make them, and how they aligned with the certain constellations or whatnot. I mean, it's like, if you would even try to do that today, even with our modern machinery and our CAD programs and things like that, it'd be very difficult to create. So how was it that these ancient civilizations had such a knowledge of mathematics and invention back then. That was, for whatever reason, historical record, a lot of these civilizations died for whatever reason, political, famine, disease, whatever it was. A lot of them got buried by the sand. And then we, dig these things up, and we notice that, we've had these civilizations that were far more technically advanced. And then certainly once you get into the 80 period, you had this dark ages where, there wasn't a lot of invention. That we discovered later on that you had these civilizations that were far advanced. They were doing surgeries, like open heart surgeries and, all kinds
Years
of,
ago, yeah.
all kinds of things that we're just now getting back to. But oftentimes that would happen, especially back then with war. Wars were so total. You didn't have a culture like, I know you talked about Alexander the Great last week and how he was able to have people sort of preserve cultures or whatnot. But a lot of times war was absolute. So it was like, you wipe out everybody. And unfortunately, a lot of their history, their culture, their invention, their science oftentimes died with them. And we would have to sort of rediscover what that was.
I'll
But,
give you two good examples right there now,
yeah.
Paul. Like we have in Egypt, like Library of Alexandria. It was
Yeah.
burned to the ground by the Romans.
Yeah.
Like, and that's sad because that was one of the best thing you ever had. Where every last book named to man in that library.
Yeah.
I'll give you my
imagine-
personal opinion here about something.
Yeah.
I know maybe it sounds like a theory only, and it is a
Mhm.
theory. I don't
Sure.
think it was ever burned down. I think it's hidden because we're not ready to look at those books. They're too advanced for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Here's
that's
the
a- that-
second part of
yeah.
my theory. Of what like, sir, let's say Atlantis was real, and I do think it's real. I think it was
Now, when you
earthquake
say
stuff.
Atlantis, you're talking about like people breathing underwater type of real? Or you just talking about okay? You're not
I
talking
think it was
about that.
above ground and everything like Athens was. I think a
Right.
big earthquake happened and it sunk it. That's
Right.
how I think it. And I do
Right.
think it's in Greece, and it's been proven studies that it is in Greece, but because we had a bad history of people stealing our artifacts and going, "Oh, is in our country. Too bad. Time can get it." Haha. So that's why they're really against them going to look for it. But my point is trying to get to right now with this is, yes, I do think Atlantis is real. I think the technology was advanced. Is it advanced to a point like you see in cartoons? No. I think it's advanced enough for them at
Right.
the
I mean,
time.
relative, when you look at, again, the dark ages of Europe, for example, like, when you talk about that era, before the Industrial Revolution, before, the invention of modern, science, or I don't want to say the invention, but the discovery of modern science, again, it's almost like humanity had to start over and find things. But then even if you go into like the East, ancient Eastern medicines. I don't know, Dave, if you're still there. I don't know about
I'm
African
still here.
medicine discoveries. Because I know East Asia, you have like the acupuncture. You got all those Asian medicine practices. I don't know if there's an African tradition with that.
Didn't you guys have medicine, but it was called more voodoo magic medicine kind of thing? Or am I
No,
wrong?
here the thing. We had medicine, but the majority of the medicine come from combination of different herbs
hmm
and tree barks. That's what it is. Because while you guys were talking, I was trying to look up the history of my country, trying to find out it was called the Kingdom of Benin. What did
Benin.
it
Okay,
back?
I think I've heard of that.
What, what did it back to the 900s, all the
Mhm.
way to 1897 when the kingdom was annexed by the British Empire.
Right.
So that to show how old that kingdom really is. And the northern part of Nigeria was under the Songhai Empire.
hmm
They had to talk about a pre-colonized empire. It's like there's a bunch of kingdoms, but the thing comes to medicine. Majority of the medicine it always had to do with the herb and the spice and the region
Right.
of these particular herb. Africa was very heavy on traditional medicine, whereby certain combinations of tree bark they would use, certain type of herb, leaves, plant that being combined by these herbalists. That's how the thing called. We have people called herbalists. They
Yeah.
master and
Yeah.
they understand the nature of every herb across Africa and their property behind it. How to
Right.
make certain herb to produce certain medicine for certain cure. That was the main thing. Because when I was looking up African empires, I found up to 13, but based on the date and the time. So my country is under the Kingdom of Benin before they got annexed by
Right.
the British Empire and given another name before they give the new name called Nigeria. And I
Right.
put in the back chat about Africa original name. We call Al Akir Bulan. That's the original name of Africa.
Right. Right.
So it's
I
kind
think
of
I
like,
think I recall that. I remember taking a college course. I think that was revealed to us. So I remember that.
so when I went to Nigeria, and my mom did take me to a herbalist, they use a lot of herb and tree bark. You will soak it. No, they'll soak it in alcohol. That's what it is.
Hmm.
The herb mixture called, I think it was, I forgot what it was. Um, they're the African herb. It's a tree bark. It's known for uh, curing impotence among men,
Oh wow.
but it has to be soaked in.
Wow.
I know if he does,
You know, BMU is
stop.
going to come after you now and says, "Look, you know,
He does
you
stop.
already have all these imports, rhinoceros horn, and all this stuff or whatever." So he's gonna make you
I knew
go
you
and
took
open up the
a
business
version of a
and
tulip
start to
over
bring
there.
stuff over.
I
Was that?
knew you guys took a version of a Viagra on your side of the country.
Yeah, it's a version of Viagra, but it's
Now
not
I
like
know what's
it's
going
it's
on
not
with our pain.
it's not like. I'll pay. I
Shout
did
out
not
to our
do
guy
that.
RP.
I did not do that to the. It's a tree bark. I forgot what the original name called, but you have to soak it in alcohol for a couple of days. Then
Right,
when you do drink it, it cure you of impotence with no side effect. Only problem is women end up running from you.
running from you.
I'm being perfectly honest. You're
Okay,
being
Wow.
put in
you know
time.
how BMU has your little sell milk thing on the side. His
Yeah.
business. Like, now we
I
have
know.
a Black David's Viagra series. I mean, like, drink one of these, no one will touch
He's
you.
been trying to
It's
get you to
coming
get into
soon
that for
to
years,
a
man. So
vinyl
I
now,
shop
know.
near
I
you.
know BMJ have been doing that because the thing that we don't do animal medicine. That's the one thing he keep missing the mark.
Mhm,
When you do stuff in Africa, it's mostly based on herb and tree bark. It has nothing to
right.
do with animals. They have never
You
been
know what's
that
funny
way.
about that? Black David, you know what's funny?
But
Actually, Greeks believe the same thing.
There's
All the Greeks.
ancient Greek medicine that
No,
yeah,
actually, my mother, my grandmother, all those, like, when I got my kidney stone, like, we have this herb tea you drink, and it'll break the rock and piss out. And it does kind of work. It tastes like goddamn dog shit.
mm,
But my mom used to take it when she get her kidney stone. She never had to go to the doctor. She just pissed it out. It breaks it up. And there are so many different teas and herbs and stuff like that in between. At least I can speak about what David is saying and versus Greek. So
right.
that's another gray area I think we just broke the wall tonight with.
Yeah. Yeah, we could definitely have a show like on medicine or
On
ancient
Variega and
medicine
David's
because
side.
practice.
that's
Yeah.
the thing. Because there's never once you hear anything about using any animal for medicine. If anything, in Africa, animal was used for sacrifice, for ritual,
Right.
but never used for medicine. Anything concerning medicine wise, it's mostly tree bark, herbs, leaves, or spices. But every tree in Africa is not the same. It's based on the
Right.
condition where the tree is located and the type of soil it has.
Right.
This is why when they tell you all type of medicine, and I've seen those type of culture they do for men alone, these herbs will tell these men leave this thing for at least a week, soak in alcohol. After a week, you can start drinking it periodically as much as you want. And to this day, they still do that in my country. The problem is that thing it's too potent. It's stronger than Viagra, no side effects.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for a stronger Variega, please call 213-258-2828
Yeah, you open
to order your first symptom.
you open up
And
a
you get
can
a
of worms
half
here.
discount to the VMU channel.
Oh
And
man.
the
All right.
all
Well, that's going to
donations
be
are a
again.
nonprofit.
That's going to be another gray area down the line. We're going to have a gray area on how sexual dysfunction is treated throughout the world, and we're
Yeah.
going to talk about all these
And ladies and gentlemen, if you'd
all
like
these
me to put the
different
number in the
functions,
link,
all
please
these
let me
different
know.
people and their secret formulas that are
Oh.
that are available to us. But I know where.
I blame
Yeah.
Take Heed because it's her fault. Because when she was on the panel one time, her husband's also a Nigerian. She said, "The one thing I like about my husband, he doesn't tap out." I was like, "Oh Lord,
Hmm.
you
Now,
just
is
messed
he
it up
Igbo
for
or
me."
Yoruba? Her husband?
You gotta ask her
Okay, all
because
right. She never revealed that. Okay. But
she knows.
yeah. But I know
But that's what I'm
we're,
saying.
we're one. Yeah, I know we're running down the show, so I just want to see if we want to get to. I mean, Pete, unless you have a final topic, I can kind of take it from here. If you had another set of questions or segment that you wanted to go into, otherwise I can kind of go in a
The only
different
thing I want
direction
to
here.
touch base on a little bit with the
Sure.
statues you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating, and to this day, even back then, we all picture this body, like a perfect body in a statue. Even to this day, you're into fitness, like as well as I am,
Yeah.
and you always picture that perfect body, and you're always looking at the statues, the Greek gods, or whatever you're looking at.
Right.
And back then, fitness wasn't a thing, but they were still even thinking about it. We even knew about it. Think about it.
Right. Which again, the influence again, going back to how those ancient gods and practice, how that influences us to today. How men and women look at themselves. Like I said, the female statues, again, very feminine, the arms, how the arms are positioned, her poses and everything, and how, we've always tried to model that in our women because it's again how we best like to see ourselves. I mean, again, guys, what guy doesn't like muscle? What guy doesn't like being exhibited in a strong in muscular fashion? These guys with the beards. Now, again, certain cultures I recognize, even though I'm part of the 7B club, I recognize that beards give a sign of wisdom.
I want to touch base on the beards when you're done.
Of wisdom and knowledge and understanding and a representation that you've lived a full life. So yeah, I think in a lot of our images now, David, if you're still on, wanted to ask you, because this is one thing I haven't seen manifested in a lot of African art, if you will. Gods, for example, in these sort of images, or like I've seen, I've been to like African shops and looked at African art, and people have like wood carvings and masks and things of that nature, but I've never seen gods or goddesses drawn, or like statues or figures in these sort of ways. But it's definitely with the Greeks and the Romans. There's definitely a very different way they represent themselves.
A lot of these African gods were made in statue, image. Sometimes they're marked, but never a portrait of what the god looked like. That have always been the case.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many African artifacts that have been taken out of Africa, put in a lot of these museums that represent certain gods of certain regions.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been fighting to have those things returned back to Africa for those purposes.
Right. But are the figures themselves? Do they look? Are they muscular? Are they?
It doesn't show any sign of muscular or figure whatsoever. Because even though I tried to look at not one real African image or what an African god looked like, but you always knew, based on past picture of how they drew people who fought as warriors, they're always big, huge. When it comes to men, the symbol of strength is always based on the size of the muscles.
Right.
But you never see anything about God. I'm being real dead. I have not in my recollection, I've seen any African portrait of a god or how he looked or how he's supposed to be. It's never been the case.
Right.
There's many actors who try to portray it in many ways, and you can see them that have their own figure and their shape. But not one had even tried to draw one to exactly how he put to look.
Right.
It's out here in the US they try to put what they think the god look like.
Right. Well, I honestly think that happens I think a lot of that started with, again, the Greek and the Roman gods and goddesses. I mean, because if you look at those ancient Egyptian gods, a lot of that was, they had animal heads on them or figures, or they weren't drawn to look in certain ways, but that sense of, again, what we think of manhood now, again, when we think about bodybuilding, we talk about athletes, when we talk about even going back to ancient Greece with the Olympic Games and the early sports figures and whatnot.
Here's the truth of things. When they did fight war among them within kingdom, they were long distance.
Right.
There was no horseback riding on the thing going. There was, when I say the strength of African is being known throughout the continent. They are not weak.
Right, right,
And they want to run from one country to another country, it was done.
right. No, absolutely. But in terms of just the art, the representation, I haven't seen that to the extent
You,
I've
you won't,
I've seen it with
you
the
won't,
Greeks and the
because
Romans.
you
That's all.
won't,
That's all
because
I'm
I,
saying. It's
The Greeks
because
that.
I,
and Romans have it literally deep as you can find it. I have
you
looked
can
into
find
it for years, and the only one or two I can find, I think Greek and Roman, because they were pretty close, they're like neighbors, pretty much. And I
Mhm.
Mhm.
think that's why we're so similar. Even Egyptians, if you use their callifics, there is nowhere near
No,
as
w-
how over dramatic it is. But I think
right.
what I think is fascinating, we came around a big circle if you think about it, because we had Mount Olympus, now we have Miss Olympia. See where I'm going with this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
too similar. It's way too similar. And we didn't have that in
Yeah.
Africa. That was the unique thing about it. We do have some mountain, but it wasn't a lot of mountainous area in Africa to think about it though. So it kind of confusing. But if you were to do a research base of any kingdom before colonization, you might have an idea what you're looking for because I think that's where the question come to play.
yeah,
Because when,
yeah. I
within
would.
the within the empire, that you find where the god origin come from.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah,
do want to touch base on this beards for a second.
yeah. Sure. Go ahead.
Beards in all cultures, I don't care where you come from, symbolize power,
It
manhood.
does.
So
Well, actually, since David's here, would you agree with that? Because again, in
I, I
Africa,
will I
generally
will agree.
speaking, a lot of men, especially depending if you're in the sub-Saharan area, having hair is not an attribute or an asset. You can't grow hair. I mean, you see the women even they don't have long hair. I mean, so hair is not something that in a lot of African cultures is even possible, just based on genetics and DNA. So would
Now,
you co-sign on some of that,
before I
David?
would say before colonization, a lot of men were growing beard in Africa. That was known for sure. A lot of
Interesting.
women were
Okay.
growing long hair because that. Number like this. I looked up and I found out my continent was called the Dark Continent for a reason, and they're referring to people of dark skin color. So we were part of the Dark Continent, and I'm hearing that a lot of times both anime and movie, the Dark Continent. I was like, what are we referring to dark? And I realized referring to African people,
Hmm.
but African women always have long hair, but their hair was not silky, it was coarse.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah.
Somewhat easy to manage. African men do grow beards. They do. That was a normal thing. Just that
Hmm.
there's not a lot of pictures beside Ethiopia. Ethiopia was showing some of the ruler with long beard
Hmm.
in some kind of way, and somehow some of the pictures from Ethiopia end up being Jamaica, which I don't know why. That's a whole
Yeah.
nother
Yeah.
story.
Right.
That's a whole nother ball game.
Right.
But yes,
But you
there's a
would
lot of
agree that there's certain peoples in Africa where again hair is just not grown. It's just like I said, whether it
it
be
it,
male or
it
female, the
it's
hair is very
grown.
short.
It's not grown based on the condition where they're at. If you're in the Sahara Desert area,
Uh huh.
in worst case now it did grow, they just kind of like shave it off.
like Egypt, for example, Paul, I'll give you that a good example. They actually had beards too. Even their what are they called? Pharaohs that had
Yeah.
a strap on. No fun intended, David. A strap
Right.
on his face,
Jeez.
and that's what they use as a beard. So I will give you two good examples here. A sign of beard in mythology stand for manhood and wisdom. The only time your beard was cut off if you were portrayed as a punishment. That's the only time your beard came off your face. You could have
Mm.
trimmed it down a little bit, obviously, if you wanted to. We didn't have buzzers; they used scissors back then, obviously. But even across the board, Zeus again, All Father, Apollo, and so on, all of them had beards because of the symbol what beard stands for. The
Mhm.
other factor of a beard, manhood, also stands you're more likely to be picked as a mate to produce offsprings because your testosterone is higher than a man with no beard. No offense, Paul, and so on. Um, so that's the other thing too. Even back then, believe it or not, beard oil. I think it's a new think. It's not. It's actually an ancient technique. It was
Right.
built back in the Roman era, the Greek era, and the Viking. They used to take herbs, crush it up, and they put on the beards. And that's how they soothe the beards like we do now. Now we just buy it in a store. That's the biggest difference.
I looked it
Also,
up
like they're
too.
looking in the comments, I have a surprise for you.
I know. I looked up on online, and it say the sign of beard in Africa is a sign of masculinity. In some cases, also a
Thank you.
sign of wisdom to
Right.
show fertility.
Right.
This
So
is why they
All
come
right.
to
yeah,
read
So
reviews.
do I dare introduce because I have a question because again I'm looking for this commonality. All right.
Go ahead.
You talk
Ask it.
about man. You're talking about manhood, and again I'm going to try to approach this as delicately as I can,
Oh, good.
given at least one of the people who's on the show. I see a lot in ancient religious practice. There are various phallic statues and symbols or how the gods are represented. The phallus is certainly something that is represented, and it's across it. There's an African, there's Greek, there's all these different phallic symbols in a lot of these ancient religions and whatnot. So again, it could be an homage to again fertility, or the idea of having children or masculinity or manhood or whatever. You clearly don't see that in the monotheistic religions, at least not to this extent. But certainly that is something that also seems to be common in a lot of these almost the worship of the phallus. I'll just leave it there if you guys want to take that away. But what is that you find in African art, in Greek art, and ancient arts, this sort of worship of the male organ? I'll just leave it there.
Are we talking about like down here, or are we talking about the face?
Yes, yeah. You ever
Are we
heard
talking
of a
about the
phallic
Kraken?
symbol? You ever?
Kraken.
So I'm just, I don't know if you guys want to take that one.
So I'll take it because I maybe in Greek again. So
Yes.
Greek, part of Greek, size mattered for a woman.
Really?
Yes, bigger your Kraken for appropriate reasons,
Okay.
more powerful you are, more stronger you are. You are a man. Longer the beard, bigger down there worse too.
Really?
Yes. So it was a real masculinization thing.
Right.
And that's been passed down from generation to generation. How many times do you bust balls like, as when in high school, like, like saying, you think it's too small, you can't find it, all those bullshit jokes.
Yeah.
in Africa, I hate to say that that's the same thing too. Sometimes I'm sorry.
Gray
I'm
area.
sorry. When he brought that up, I was like, oh shit.
Paul went there. Paul actually went there.
Yeah, I'm just,
But it's a big deal in Africa. I'm telling you right now. The bigger you are, the more popular you become.
right. But again, I'm just, the only reason I brought it up because it seems to be manifested in the ancient gods. Like that seemed to matter. It was like a symbol
Remember what I
of
said,
your,
that African herb that can fix that issue. At the same token, that African herb that forced that thing to go even bigger.
see,
But
now you're acting very much like a Wakandan right now. Because clearly you got this vibranium that you've just been holding on to and you don't want to share with the world. I mean, look, a lot of us, especially some of us older guys, especially since I'm, I have my African roots also, but you guys refuse to.
Paul. Look in the
What's
chats.
that?
Black Davis number is in the chats. Ready to call your supplements.
I'm just saying, it's like
Lord.
he keeps referring to all these herbal treatments and supplements and what have you that's available. I'm just saying,
but there's a big issue behind it because since if I remember correctly, I came back to the country back in 1997, 1998. Ever since then, there have been a block of people.
FDA is crazy. Yeah, Food and Drug Administration. You can't take anything.
All those herbal import stayed in Africa. To have it shipped out here, it's kind of risky.
So what you're saying is, I need to make a trip then.
Yeah, you need to make a trip then. Then you gotta find the right herbalist who know about the African herb because it's popular in my country a lot because let's say a lot of old men like to drink it a lot to the point whereby when they look for young women, I kind of like feel sorry for them.
You know, Paul, I'll be straight up with you, dude. If you were to live in ancient times, you're gonna be screwed because you can't grow a beard and you don't have any hair. So you'll be a last
Hey,
pick.
I might as well. You might as well make me like one of them monks. I'd be like one of those monks or eunuchs or something like that. I just be looked at that way. That I wouldn't be looked at as any use, but maybe I give some wisdom to somebody.
The head hair
But
wasn't as important back in the day, more than the facial hair. The facial hair was very important from Egypt times to all these times. The beard hair was the most important thing on a man. It only protected your face, a symbol like manhood.
Yeah.
So even you go to a lot of cultures, like Middle Eastern cultures, you see 95% men have beards to this day.
yeah,
Like if I worked in my church, I'm like, yeah, I'm one of the guys who have the long beard.
Mhm.
Actually, I'm the only one that has a long beard in my church. But most of them have a short, nice trim beard, like a 1 to 2 inches,
Mhm.
versus mine is like 3.5 almost now. So
Right.
like even Father Cosentino, remember him? His beard is not as long as mine,
right,
and I've been, mine is a rebooted one. So my
Right.
point is trying to get to beard is a big symbol, and it goes back generations, and we do.
Yeah.
And now we have a lot of females. Like, oh, I don't like beards. Like, well, you should go back in the day, see how you like the beard
yeah,
back then.
yeah. It
had
was they found a way, but David, the fact that you're showing these statues, this is what I was kind of talking about before. Like a lot of the statues, a lot of African statues, again, none of them necessarily reflect, like I said, the
And
male
and
physique.
that
The
and that's what I was trying to point out, because the way they were culture during that time, they symbol behind, or the meaning behind it, compared to this one was more modern right here.
Mhm. Yeah.
The one here were built in Dakar, Senegal, and as you
Mhm.
can see,
That's way
she
more
had to
modern. It's got to
describe the
be.
men.
That's definitely way
That's
more
way more
modern
modern.
than. Yeah.
That cost about $30 million for them to build it. It's huge.
Right.
Compared to all the other ancient statues, it had nothing to describe how African people look. That's
Right.
what I was trying
Right.
to point out. Because when you go to
Yeah,
these type of
exactly. Yeah.
art shop where they have all these idols, all these statues, you notice it does not describe how men or women actually look. It was designed and made during that time based on the artistic mindset of the African culture makers were doing. Like
Mhm.
this one here, the Benin bronze. This part of the kingdom of Benin.
Mhm.
If you notice, they had something among their throat that put the shut
Yeah. Yeah.
their
So those
neck out.
elongated necks
I don't
where
know
they
what
put
that
the
is,
rings
but
around
that
them.
did a lot.
Yeah.
Bingo. That's something I'll be trying to point out. We don't have anything like the Greeks or the Romans that's showing the fatigues. It was never that way to begin with. Some of
Right.
these
Right.
statues
Right.
are considered to be supernatural for certain things. Like
Mhm.
I remember my mom to have a bunch of these in the house. It's like a deity, having a deity in the house, and it was more like a contradiction, because how you have these
Interesting. Now,
African statues in
now
your
your
home.
family background is Christian. Is your family Christian? For the most part.
How would I put it? My family background wasn't all the way Christian. They have a
Okay.
tradition of God that they follow. My
Got you.
mom
Got you.
became a Christian. My dad became a Christian afterwards, right?
Okay. Got it.
But when they came to the U.S., my mom bought a lot of African statues. She have it on her bookshelf,
Mhm.
and it was then when I started to get to understand the Bible more and more that I started to realize some of these statues have a supernatural presence about it.
Mm.
So it kind of contradicting to have these African
Sure.
statues, and your faith
Right.
is contradicting what those statues represent.
Mhm.
So it's almost like a conflict of interest. You can't serve two God kind of thing. So
Right. Right.
yeah,
Right.
a lot of the African people who are truly traditional have a lot of these African statues in their home. Either
Mhm.
represent a deity, it represent some kind of sign of protection, or
Right,
sign of
and for
fertility.
like you said, for different purposes. So you want one for
Bingo.
financial, for for food or bounty. You want one for sex. You want one for
Bingo.
all different types of
If you were to research all these African cultures, some of them you start to question. This is why I didn't know they have an African statue in Mexico. That
Oh yeah,
said a
the
lot of
Olmec. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
how
That's
that got
because a
there.
lot of people said they came before Columbus. How do we knew that Africans went to South America, in South and Central America first, because you saw those statues that were there. So again, that was definitely
And
a
Africa, no,
evidence.
no
Yeah,
kingdom was expanded themselves. Remember,
right,
I told you it was kingdom before they have countries. No
right.
can they have wealth and riches? Because when I was looking up some of this information, well, then I started to realize there's far more than what it is. Because one can have gold, salt, and other minerals.
Hmm.
But even I myself, it's now forced me that I want to take a time out and start doing my own research, because
Hmm.
a lot of history about Africa have not been mentioned in high school when I was going there.
Yeah,
That's it a
yeah.
lot,
But
because,
that last picture you
for
were
example,
showing with
The
the
Songhai Empire
yeah,
with a weapon with a thing around the neck.
yeah,
The last picture I show you,
Like as you look for that,
that's
look for
the
that. I want to ask
ancient
you a
kingdom.
question very fast. And again, I apologize if I'm a little
Go
bit
ahead.
a little naive here. Didn't you guys back in the day? I mean, ancient times, obviously, was braids a thing back then too, as popular as it is today?
Say it again. Braid.
Yeah,
braids.
braids hair,
Braid.
like man who braiding their hair.
Men would not braid their hair. It was mostly the women that braid their hair a lot.
Right.
And that's a modern thing, isn't it?
It was a normal thing among women to have their hair braided. Among men, it depends on the region or what
Okay.
kingdom they're allowing that to happen. But a lot of women were braiding a whole kind of braid left and right. Braid was among women heavy. Men grew their hair, it get furry, then it kind of like spread out in some cases. Women had their hair braided a whole lot more than you can imagine. That was a known thing.
Interesting. So it's kind of
Yeah,
50-50, you're
yeah, it's
saying.
definitely, but it's going to then be interesting how, like I said, art always, or life, it gets expressed in its art, because again, you're starting to see, in different pictures of like Jesus, for example. I've seen Jesus, pictured in cornrows, for example.
I never seen that, to be honest with
You
you.
might have
It's
you might look for the Ethiopian Bible, because that's the ordered Bible right there. They
right,
have
right.
this picture of how Jesus is supposed to look. And
Yeah,
within the
yeah,
picture, they show Jesus Christ was never white to begin with. So I don't know why they keep having the white Jesus portrait out there when the Bible says it was like brass. And
yeah,
brass with the color of what?
yeah. It's brown. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, just the general theme of how, um people want to be represented in our gods. I think the whole topic of God tonight, I think, has a lot as much to do with us and how human beings over time have seen themselves more so than the God entities themselves, and how that's manifested itself in terms of even today our modern sensibilities. So again, I think so much of our culture today has been influenced by, again, the Greeks and the Romans. I think certainly more emphasis is needed in terms of African culture, and how certainly how that's proliferated. But as far as how human beings saw themselves, they saw themselves in these strong alpha male type figures and feminine type of women. I mean, if you want to talk about who the prototypical is, and again, it's manifested itself in our fiction, in our comic books. It's like all of the superheroes. Like I've seen very few fat superheroes. You know what I mean? Male or female. It's like all the women have the perfect bodies. The guys typically have the bodybuilder, sort of very symmetrical looks to them, and it seems like they've gotten more muscular over the years. But I think a lot of that has its origin in these ancient gods and what the vision by who the original artists were, or what these people were supposed to reflect, and what they were supposed to look at. So I think that the legacy, if not the general worship of these gods, is certainly something that has stayed with us for all this time. I think in a lot of ways they're very influential in terms of how we see ourselves, and so I think if that is certainly a legacy that comes from these figures that is that has endured. So if I had a final thought, I know we're coming up towards the end of the show. If I did have a final thought, I guess that would be it. Peter, if you want to, I guess start the closing thoughts on the show. I think this has been interesting. I think the biggest thing has been
Yeah, we
certainly
definitely gotta get EKLI on this. because I want to
I would love to get his
his
perspectives
opinion.
on that. Yeah, for sure.
Just gotta keep him maintained because I know he goes a little off the edge sometimes. But
Yeah.
My final thoughts: learn your history, learn your culture, learn your ancient roots, because that could be a big part of why you are who you are, and you don't realize it.
hmm Yeah, for sure.
David,
One
you got
comment I
anything?
did want to get to in the chat. I know Marcus Antonio Castillo. He talked about that's why I don't take women who call themselves goddesses or men who call gods seriously and won't call them that. Yeah, I know that was and I know certainly there was a trend for some time where again you had certain belief systems. I know, like 5% Nation and whatnot. They tended to refer to themselves as such. I think the whole idea of gods and goddesses, yeah, I definitely think a lot of that got overblown. But again, a lot of the gods that we create is oftentimes coming out of how we see ourselves. So again, as a monotheist, as a Christian myself, certainly I believe that there's only one God, and represented, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That's my belief system. But people want to see themselves through their deities, and so yeah, the idea of people calling themselves gods, honestly, that might be as true a statement as can be uttered, because ultimately people, more times than not, trust in themselves than to trust in another being, because in order to do that, it takes a certain level of humility to recognize that you're no better than, no greater than, or no worse than anyone else. And that people did take a humble approach. I mean, with all the religious strife that's going on in the world and all the protests and all the things that are going on. Shout out to Brother Trey Ferg. Thanks for coming through tonight. Nia, thank you also. I hope I got your name right this time coming through tonight. But this was, certainly an engaging conversation. I think we had a couple folks who came in kind of, spamming us a little bit. But that's okay. It's an open.
Well, before we finish close out, I want to touch base on one other comment he made about North Vikings star the braids. I don't know that. I can't answer that because I don't know the facts on that. Could be, yeah. Could be not. Yeah, too.
Yeah.
I really can't answer that. I don't know.
I think those are things worth, obviously worth exploring. But again, culture evolves, and people, find the expression through, again, how you look, how your hair, your body. Those things are, those naturally occur over time. And there's also trends. What was new is now old, and what's new again. We're always sort of reinventing ourselves in that way. But we hope this was an interesting conversation we had tonight. Again, take away again the similarities is certainly something worth looking into more. Definitely looking at having more conversations like this one. I think next week, I think is your Easter is next week.
Yeah, Easter. I can't wait to eat my lamb.
That's the
we will be
meal.
talking about Greek Orthodox Easter. I will send you a couple words to learn in a week.
Okay. All right.
Get ready.
I'll have to just give me a few days to practice. I'll nail it.
We'll go over it. I'll call you one of these days, and then we're gonna have a quick. I'll call FaceTime. It'll be easier, so you can see how I roll my tongue and stuff.
Okay. I got to do the tongue roll thing. You guys got that going? Oh,
yeah.
Geez. All right.
So, guys, remember, if you're looking for your supplements, Black David's number is in the
reach
chat.
out to David, or we need an importer, and we need some how to get. Probably Ekane's got. I think Ekane has all this stuff. I think
probably knowing him.
He's got an inside track on this and whatnot. So we need to persuade him to see if he can make some of that product available. And Credit Pablo, he's a big entrepreneurial guy, so I'm sure he can find a way.
Yeah, I gotta talk to BME on the side. I'm like, I need to get a little commission for me putting the phone numbers out there, and promoting the product. We gotta find a good name. I gotta talk to BME. I need a good name so I can keep on this.
But then he needs to stop all the bad, because we don't do bad medicine. That way he got the misconception behind it. Everything mostly herbal and tree box. That's the difference. So when he keeps saying that, I have to laugh. I'm like, he got it off.
Oh, yeah. So we can call it herbal boosting. There we go.
So trust me when I say that. You see African medicine, see what it does to the human body, you be shocked. You're like, why didn't nobody want to introduce it? Because why? the pharmaceutical company want to make their million. They don't want to find the easy way to find solution to your system.
True.
That is
That's the problem.
true because a lot of supplements are polluted. Who knows what in there, and we take them.
Yeah. But it's a. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion in and of
Yeah,
itself.
that's a different
I mean,
night.
I know we got FDA and whatnot, and certain things they want in the market and some don't, and but that gets into a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I enjoyed tonight's show. Very interesting, and definitely looking forward to the feedback. Again, for those of you who came in to drop in to see us tonight, thank you for coming in. Thank you for Trey Ferg. Again, Information Man, always swinging through. Always appreciate it when you stop by and visit our page. For everyone who did have an opportunity to come in, click the like button and give support to the page. It helps the algorithm for people to find us and to see us. But definitely looking forward to these conversations have certainly been edifying to me, and we've been able to again unpack the layers. And again, we look for contributors. And again, if you're someone who comes from a different ethnic background, and we don't get a chance to learn about Arab culture, Asian culture, Latin culture, we'd love to get some more input from different people in terms of the cultural perspectives that you have. I think it just adds to the value of the show. So we're definitely looking forward to that in the future. In a couple of weeks, I believe, we're going to have our open line.
Give me 2 seconds. I'll tell you right now when.
Yeah.
Give me like 2 seconds. I'll get the email. My list.
I thought it was May 12th last time, but I could be wrong. But
I gotta check. To be honest with you.
But certainly when we have that show again, any of these topics that we've talked about over the last few weeks, you're certainly more than happy to revisit. We'll try to get an early word out to everybody. We're going to have our open mic show, especially the show we had last week on history. I thought that was fire in terms of the chat and the engagement there. And certainly I know people were kind of itching to get on, but time didn't permit for that. So again, for those who were wanting to give input on that, you can certainly call back once Peter finds the date.
The 19th.
The 19th. Okay, so yes. May 19th is going to be our next call-in show, and we want to hear from everybody. Those who follow us. Even if you just come up just to say hi to us.
And
we just
guys,
appreciate
if you guys,
you
need any information about the show, or you want to know how to get on, or you want to be a guest, my email is on the grooming side of when we co-streams on grooming side. I have my email at the bottom. I'm not sure. BMU is probably somewhere or post. One of us are emails, so you're gonna find some of us. So
Indeed.
If you want to reach out to us, reach out. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Or I can, if there's a question about Paul and you email me, I can direct email to Paul or vice versa. So again, if you need to talk to us, we're here.
Absolutely. And you can also find us on our Facebook and Instagram. Again, my Instagram, Paul T. Bennett, is pretty simple to find me out there. Facebook, Paul T. Bennett as well. So I'm pretty easy to find.
And here's my group page. As well. Grooming Reviews 101 is my group page.
There you go. There you
go. I look forward to having you guys on. I really do.
Absolutely.
Want to close it out? Want me to do it tonight?
You can do it. Go right ahead, sir.
This was BMU Network with Grooming Reviews. He's Paul. I'm Grooming Reviews. See you guys next week.
Have a great day, week, guys. Take care.